Hey guys, welcome back to the Danger Planet. And today we're talking all about a custom Malifaux Master that Sam designed to give away at GenCon. Before we get into the video, guys, this is Doug. I just wanted to have a quick second here to recognize the team that contributed to the art, the rules writing, and the development that went into this project. It was a lot of fun. The project is free for everybody that wants it. The STLs are going to be on Thingiverse. Anybody can download them, and the PDF rules will be in our Discord. Again, this isn't a paid thing. This is just something that we wanted to do and have wanted to do for a while. And so over time, we put the project together with a bunch of different artists that we really like working with and whose art we really like. But I did want to give a very special shout out to Paul in our Discord server. He went way above and beyond the Call of Duty on this one and was basically working with me on a nightly basis, designing the cards, designing the layout for the cards, and then taking the rules that Sam had and making them look nice on the card layout. So huge shout out to him. He's awesome. In fact, our entire Discord community is really, 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 really good, especially around Malifaux. That's kind of like the core game that this channel was built on originally. So the Malifaux specific part of our Discord as a community is really active now, and it's really fun to see different people contributing in different ways. So really specifically a huge shout out to Paul, who helped with the design process of the actual cards, which is what folks are going to be using when they play with these models. And then from a rules and design standpoint, big shout out to King Richard as well as Pope the Pope DARPA. Those guys were really helpful when Sam was doing the lead work on the design, because quite frankly, they're both a lot smarter than I am. So they were able to give design notes and feedback to Sam as we were both iterating through the process of kind of like putting these guys together. So thank you to the huge team that did this. You guys can see everybody who contributed, their name is up on the screen right now. And we'll also make sure that we post this at the end of the video as well. And if folks have questions about any of these artists or how to reach these artists, let me know, let us know in the comments, and we can very easily put you in touch with those folks. Hey guys, welcome back to Danger Planet. This is Doug. I'm here with Sam. Sam, hey, say hello again to the internet.
Hey everyone, I'm still alive. Feeling good about being back.
It's great to have you back, Sam. Today is a special occasion, and I would say probably your grand re-entrance. We're talking all about a Malifaux Master and Totem pair that you designed from the ground up as Danger Planet's 2023 GenCon giveaway. So why don't we just talk a little bit about that? I guess we'll spill the beans right away. Basically, Sam, for the last month or so, has been working on designing from the ground up Blob Ross, both version 1 and version 2, the title version of Blob, as well as Blob Ross's Totem, Spaceman. And so the TLDR of what we've done is Sam spent about a month designing these models, playtesting them, tweaking them, and we're going to provide everybody with free downloadable STLs so they can print out these models at home and use them. We also have fully designed cards that folks can print out and use, and we also have Danger Planet markers that we're going to talk about basically in the next 2-3 minutes and explain how those kind of go side by side with Blob Ross's abilities. But the TLDR of what's going on today is Sam and I are going to break down our custom Malifaux Master, talk a little bit about how Sam went through the process of designing Blob Ross, how Blob Ross works on the table, and the different ways you can get your hands on them and start playing with them. So Sam, I guess the best place to start at is the beginning. Why don't you give the folks at home, because not only did you write the rules for Blob, you wrote the lore for Blob Ross as well. So why don't we start at the beginning, Sam? Why don't you give the folks at home a little bit of context on the lore for Blob Ross and Spaceman and Danger Planet, where they came from, what's going on with them?
Sure. So if you've watched our videos, you know who Blob Ross is. He's our little mascot. and with the Spaceman. And so Blob Ross and the Spaceman, basically, they come from the Danger Planet. So in this setting, we've decided they kind of zip around in their flying saucer, visiting different planets and having adventures, having a great time. And at one point, they decided to visit Earth. And traveling to Earth, they somehow passed through one of the Burning Man's portals. And while they thought they were getting to Earth, they actually ended up landing in Malifaux. And because Malifaux has 2 moons rather than 1, they kind of had a little bit of an accident, a little bit of a crash, and their saucer has crash landed in Malifaux City. So they're new here. They don't really know too much about what's going on, but they're always game for adventure. And so they're basically wandering the world, teaming up with locals as they find them and having cool adventures. And wherever they go, they bring their powers, which are mostly derived from the Danger Planet, which, you know, they have the ability to call down meteors and comets and cause all kinds of crazy wild stuff to happen as the pieces of the Danger Planet raining down on Malifaux's surface. That was kind of the theme that we were trying to bring with these guys, is a little bit of chaos, a little bit of craziness, but, you know, not totally random wildness.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good a segue into, why don't we talk a little bit about, you know, because I came to you with this and basically was like, hey, Sam, can you figure out a way to make a functional Malifaux Master? And you're like, I got you, dude. And then like just went to work on it. So given that this was your baby, when you first had this project, basically all you were given was, we want to make a Malifaux Master that can be compatible. I'm spilling a little of the beans here, but that can be compatible with multiple different crews and played in multiple different ways. What can you do? What do you think, Sam? And so how did you, as a game designer, right, come up with the idea and the premise and the process behind Blob version 1 and Blob version 2? And what processes did you go through to end up with the final draft of what you actually what we're about to show folks in about 2 minutes, 3 minutes here? How did that process work for you?
Yeah, so the original directions that you gave me, it was, you know, he can work with any crew, but you also said you wanted him to use Danger Planet markers. And that was, I think, a really good piece of direction, because Malifaux crews are very synergy heavy usually. They're very driven by, you know, inter-keyword synergy, not just on the level of rules that specifically reference the keyword, like how, you know, some keywords have abilities that only work on friendly models of the same keyword, but also because they're all kind of trying to do the same thing. So, for example, in a McMorning crew, there are some abilities that say friendly experimental only, but also McMorning stuff is all about handing out poison to friendlies. And so you want, like, they there you have synergy specifically with models that are not just experimental, but have that rule where they don't take damage from poison. It's perverse metabolism. So a lot of these crews, because they have that very tight set of rules, it's a little bit difficult to make a master that will work with pretty much any crew, because unless I wanted to give him a gigantic set of rules, give him, you know, perverse metabolism, and give him, you know, the rule that a lot of models in Paris's crew have that can reduce some damage they take from burning, all those different rules, then all of a sudden, if I'm not doing that, then there are crews he won't be compatible with. And I didn't want to give him a gigantic set of rules. So what I decided is, we got 2 master versions of Blob Ross, and in really basic terms, Blob Ross 1 is the master who is out there, he's killing people, he's a beat stick, and he's getting buffed by his crew. And then Blob Ross 2 is kind of slower, he's more controlling, he doesn't need to run out there himself, and he is supporting his crew. And so I thought that could, you know, cover a lot of ground and would have synergy with almost any keyword, because most keywords, either the keyword supporting the master or the master supporting the keyword. And here you've got 2 versions that do both things. So no matter what keyword you want to play them with, there's probably a version of Blob Ross that works for you.
Yeah,
that's
a great call out, Sam. I think one of the things that I think a lot about from a game design perspective more than anything is how to convey a rule set or a presence in a game without being overbearing with the amount of rules text on a given model or on a given model stat sheet. So when you say that thing about, I wanted to design something that was elegant, that had form and function, that didn't have too much info slapped onto it, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think that that's something that a lot of people that are doing initial stages of game design can struggle with. And sometimes they don't always get that right. So I think that that's a great call out from a design standpoint.
Thank you.
Why don't we get right into the cards? You know, we get do a little bit of setup here. Where do you want to start, Mr. Barrows? Do you want to start with Blob 1 or do you want to start with Spaceman?
Let's start with Blob 1. We'll talk about Spaceman at the end.
All right. So we got the first version. I guess we'll just call him Blob Ross. Yeah.
Yeah, just Blob Ross. So Blob Ross, if you look at his front of card, he has 3 abilities that both versions of him have. One is We Just Landed Here. That's just their ability that lets them work with any keyword. One is Keep It Dangerous, which is the ability that every time he activates, he gets to create a danger planet marker, which by default are just hazardous to enemies. And then he has Regen 2 because he's a blob, and a lot of you got the Grave Goo has Regen 2, and I just feel like it's a kind of a useful type of defensive tech for a blob to have. And then this one, because he's the one that wants to be mixing it up personally, we also gave him Hard to Wound, just because it makes it a little easier for him to soak incoming damage. And his defensive stats are, I'd say, about average for a master. 6'5" is fine. It's like not, he's not super defensive. This is not a guy who's going to be sitting there tanking things. You are going to need to keep him safe, but he has some tools for keeping himself safe, and he does have the ability to heal himself. So.
And I think it's important to call out where we wanted these masters to land, at least where our intention was from a design philosophy, was to have these guys land kind of in the middle of the power curve, ideally, in a Madness of Malifaux world, right? That was the direction that Sam and I were working.
Yeah.
Is we want them to be relevant, we want them to be fun to play, but we don't want this model to be like crazy overpowered. But we also want him to fit into lots of other crews. So that was kind of the challenge. So Sam, why don't you talk to us about your slime smack?
Yeah, so this guy has 2 attacks, basically. One of them is Danger Meteor, which is his other way of creating danger planet markers. And I just want to briefly talk about danger planet markers because they're the central mechanic of this keyword, the danger planet keyword. The key with the danger planet markers is figuring out the balance between how strong they are on the table and how easy they are to get out. And so this guy has some very, 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 very powerful things he can do with danger planet markers. And so we wanted to keep some limits on how many he can make. So he makes 1 per activation, and then he can make a second 1 per activation with Danger Meteor. So you're really capped here at 2 danger planets per activation, and the Spaceman can make 1 more. And that does seem like a lot, but with him, the markers are only really specifically useful to him if they're very close to enemies. So there's I tried to make it so that his attacks would be very, very strong if you had access to the danger planet markers, but you had to do some work to get the danger planet markers out there. Who wouldn't just vomit them out everywhere. So we'll start with Slime Smack. It's his basic attack. It's a stat 6 versus move. I wanted to make it versus move because move attacks are pretty strong. They're pretty rare. And it was kind of a power knob I could turn on this thing because I knew I didn't want him to be a min 3. I thought about making him a 3-4-5, but I ended up with 2-3-6, which is it's got some really spiky damage potential, especially when we start talking about his triggers. But on average, it's not going to be super powerful. A lot of the power is going to come from his triggers. And one of the key things about this attack is that he can use danger planet markers to attack through. So that just makes it so that we talked about his defensive stats are not super exceptional. He doesn't need to be on the front line. He can drop a danger planet marker, and he can, with Danger Meteor, he can drop it within 10 inches, and then all of a sudden he can start attacking through it. So he does have that tremendous range, but in order to really turn on this attack's like true potential, you want them to be near 2 danger planet markers, which generally means you're going to want him to be up close. Because if he's up close, he gets 1 danger planet marker for free, he gets 1 from Meteor, and then that's the 2. If he's not that close, he only gets the 1 from Meteor, and if your opponent is not obliging you by standing near your markers, you're not going to get the other benefit. So I wanted this attack to have kind of 2 modes, right? Close up and far away. And the reason that's so important is that one of the themes of this guy is he's got 4 triggers on both of his attacks, 1 on each suit. So he's always going to have a trigger. In the Slime Smack, all the triggers just make this attack way more powerful and dangerous. So he's got Puncture on a ram, which is very strong because it helps him get that severe 6. And I also want to note that Puncture Puncture, Severe Injury, and Wide Swing, all the triggers that are not Surge, actually stack with the number of suits you have. So you can get this benefit of adding a suit to your duel total once you've seen what your original trigger is, so you can get 2 iterations of it. So, if you flip a ram, you can get a second ram, have 2 punctures. If you flip a crow, you can get a second crow, have 2 injured stats, and so on. So punctures, as we said, it helps him get that severe 6. Severe injury also just makes it, so he can really beat somebody down by debuffing their stats. And then wide swing is for if the enemy is dumb enough to cluster up, he can really just get in there and start dropping huge blasts.
Yeah, you have a tool to punish clustering with blasts.
Exactly.
So nice.
And then Surge, I wanted to give him a little bit of card draw, but I didn't want to give this guy a ton of card draw because there are crews that are balanced around not having a ton of card draw. And if the master is just drawing a million cards because he can go in any keyword, then that's just going to be busted. So I wanted him to have a tiny bit of card draw, but not a lot.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
And then with the Meteor, that's his shockwave. I made this a fairly beefy shockwave. It's movement 13, damage 2, shockwave 2. Like, that's a fairly significant shockwave. It's not something that's ignorable, but it's once per turn. It's not his primary source of damage. And then this one, the shockwave, in addition to the damage, it's always going to inflict some kind of condition. So I think you're probably not going to cheat for a specific suit, maybe if you want stagger, but just the ability to hand out conditions makes this attack feel a little bit less like a tax you're paying in order to get your danger planet markers out. It makes it feel a little bit more exciting. And then finally, we gave him Danger Quake because, as we've said, this guy wants to get his Danger Planet markers up forward, but he also doesn't generate that many. And Danger Quake is a way that, because he's going to be leaving a trail of Danger Planet markers behind him with Keep It Dangerous. Danger Quake is a way that these markers can kind of keep up with him, can keep up with the crew, and can really punish enemies. So you push each marker up to 4 inches in any direction. And remember, any model you push it through is just going to take a point of damage from the hazardous effect right off the bat. And then they have to pass a duel or suffer 2 more damage. So this is a real way he can get some serious AoE. And if any model does pass the duel, I wanted to have the flavor of basically what this is doing is there's these, pieces of the danger planet that have rained down and they're like rolling around, setting off sparks or whatever. And if somebody does pass the duel, it means they jumped out of the way. And so you get to control that jump and push them an inch. So that one, that ability is just kind of a little bit of trinket text at the end, but it can be very helpful if some enemy models are, in a very key position, like for guard the stash. And it also means your opponent might want to fail. So, because sometimes it's better to take the damage than to get pushed. But because it's a TN duel, they ultimately have control over. They are able to get the result that's better for them. So I didn't think it was too powerful. It felt balanced to me, especially since it's once per turn.
So that makes sense. Any last thoughts before we move on to Happy Little Accident here?
Well, I just think that Blob Ross is one of the things that I think is really cool with this guy is sort of what keywords you're going to want to play him in. Different keywords are really going to change the way he plays because he's going to have access to different buffs. So I'm a Bayou player. So to me, the keyword that's most exciting for this guy is the pig keyword because pig has so many cool buffs that are locked to pigs only. So like giving this guy extra movement with Penelope, giving him extra, that
would be so gross.
Yeah, giving him extra movement with Penelope, giving him extra, healing with the slop hauler, giving him extra melee range with hog whisperers. Those are all really cool. The damage flips from Old Major, that might even be a little too good, but I'm not sure. But I guess we'll try it, especially because Old Major builds in a puncture for him. But he's not a beast, so you're not going to get to do stick 'em on him, and you're not going to get to do hurt him on him. So he's not like it's not like Ulix's title form where you can like actually obey your master a bunch of times. But I do think he is pretty strong with the pig keyword, and I'm not super worried about it because the pig keyword is not exactly top tier. So if he's really, really good in pig keyword, good. Maybe they'll get some respect.
Or whatever level of respect comes with running Blob Ross as your master.
Look, people like us. We're cool.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're cool.
I would respect somebody who dropped Blob Ross into me.
Phrasing. All right, cool. All right, let's talk about his title form, Happy Little Accident. What's the DL on Happy Little Accident, Sam?
So as you can see, Happy Little Accident is painting. This is Blob Ross in a more sort of a contemplative mood. He's not quite as aggressive and beating people up with a pseudopod. He's more helping out and painting nice little pictures. So this guy, he's got the same We Just Landed Here ability, same Keep It Dangerous. He's got regeneration. He's a little bit less health and less defense, although his willpower is better. He does have slippery, which is, again, I've just copped off the grave goo. You know, the slippery is a pretty slime ability, and it's also you know, very, very powerful. I didn't want to give slippery to the original Blob Ross because then he could hit enemies and they couldn't hit him back, which kind of feels like crap. But this guy doesn't even have a melee attack, so it doesn't feel too bad. And then he's got planetary peril, which is, I think, his most important ability, which is that any friendly model that begins their activation in base contact with one of your markers may choose to suffer 2 irreducible damage, and if they do, they get to choose a suit, and during the first duel of the activation, instead of whatever suits they would normally have, they get the chosen suit. And I just want to be clear how this works. If you have a built-in suit, and so you, like, say you have a built-in crow in your duel, and you flip like a tome, so your final duel total has crow tome, but you chose ram, you don't get 2 rams. You don't get 2 copies of the suit. You get 1 copy of the suit. It's just whatever suits you would have, it gets replaced with what you pick. And I think that's important because, you know, there are going to be people who are going to angle shoot with it. This was an ability that went through a bunch of iterative testing phases because giving out free suits is really strong. Yeah, really strong. And I think that I had to be careful with it because there are definitely some crews that do not have the balance of getting the free suits. Like, they're not balanced around that. So they would have been way too good. So the earlier versions of this ability had fewer limits, but this one, I'm happy with where it lands. First, because 2 irreducible damage is a lot. I mean, it doesn't seem like that much, but it does add up, especially on smaller models. Second, you have to start your activation in base contact with the marker, so you do need to set it up. You can't walk into the marker and then get the suit. But most importantly, it's only on your first duel of the activation. So not only do you only get it 1 time, it's not like you can, you know, save the suit for later in the activation when it would be better. It's the first time, and it's possible that you just flip the suit you wanted anyway. You know, so like, say you're going with like Deacon Hillcrest or whatever, and you really need the tome for his translocation ritual, and so you declare this. You had to set it up, and you flip a tome anyway. Well, you didn't really get any benefit. You just took 2 irreducible damage. So I think that this is, I'm open to the possibility that this may end up being a little bit more powerful in practice than we were hoping, but we've definitely toned it down significantly, and I think that this does have kind of an appropriate cost-benefit ratio, especially since it is a master. It is like the defining ability of a master. It's a master level ability. So this is the kind of thing masters do. Karis does this, Lucius does this, so I think it's fine.
Plus, if it was a huge mistake anyway, it really was genuinely a happy little accident. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't exactly know what's going to happen. So this guy, in terms of his attacks, he doesn't have a melee attack, like I said. He has Danger Comet, which is almost exactly like Danger Meteor. I had to change the name because this one's not once per activation, and same named abilities always have to have identical text. It is, in terms of its actual play, like the play pattern, it's identical to Danger Meteor, but you can do it several times, and we gave it different triggers. So we gave it Surge. Again, we want some card draw. Notice he can also build in the card draw with Planetary Peril, but again, only 1 time.
Yeah, but also this time the Surge is a little bit more powerful because he's not really a DPS machine or an attacking master. I mean, a lot more of what he's doing is supporting, such that his Surge trigger is more powerful on this model.
Right. And he also has critical danger, which is a way of making him do a little bit more damage. Now, this is a guy who's more likely to have more danger planet markers where he needs them, because he can just do, you know, during his activation, he can just do Danger Comet, Danger Comet, Danger Comet. Right. So he can just drop 3 of them. So pretty quickly, you can really clutter the board with them. They don't move around like the other ones do. And I also think there's some tension here where you can drop you will sometimes want to drop Danger Planet markers on friendly models or near friendly models, but you don't necessarily have the ability to both damage enemy models and drop them on friendlies. You kind of have to pick and choose. I also want to point out that this is create, so you cannot create them into base contact with a friendly. So you will be able to drop it next to a friendly and then move that friendly onto the marker so that on it during its next activation it can get the benefit. Although as you're going to see from his bonus action, there is a way to drop the marker and then move a friendly onto it, just so they can get that benefit. Because it felt like a really crappy play pattern to have to drop the marker near a friendly, then have them spend a whole activation moving onto it, then on their very next activation on the next turn get the free suit. That did not feel good. So we did make it.
And we're going to talk about his little buddy that helps him out with this a little bit too.
Exactly. And then finally, this one has reposition, which because he doesn't have a melee attack, he doesn't want to be in melee. He also has slippery, so it's very annoying if you're not exactly touching him. And reposition is just a way for him to kind of squirt out of melee without necessarily interrupting his whole flow of actions by doing a disengage.
Yep.
So then his ability, Danger Overload. This ability has so much text. I was not sure that I could afford to give him a second attack or tactical action because of how much text there was. Looking at his card, I maybe would have been able to, but I don't think he necessarily needs one, so it's fine. I'm not going to stress about it. Danger Overload.
I think he's totally functional as a support.
Oh yeah,
as is.
Yeah, well, Planetary Peril is so strong. Yeah. Danger Overload is each enemy model within 2 inches of one or more danger planet markers must pass a TN12 movement duel, and then every model that's near a danger planet marker, friendly or enemy, is affected by one of 3 effects. So it affects the friendlies are all positive effects, the enemy effects are all negative effects, and so the friendlies always get it, the enemies they only get it if they fail. So the 3 effects are Sam's Strength, which is the sort of damagey, like straight out, combat focused one, which is enemy models that fail take a point of damage and get injured. Friendly models heal a point of damage and can end up to 1 condition. So this is just straight up all your friendly models heal a bit, enemy models take some damage, hand out a bunch of injured, which is a really strong supporting ability. And this is a big AoE. This is sort of the way I envisioned this ability working is every single danger planet chunk of stone, every little comet that's fallen, pulses out a little bit of radioactivity or something. Then we have Doug's Domination, which is enemy models get pushed in any direction, ignoring models in terrain, and friendly models get to move, and one of them gets to make a melee attack. So this is really good for objective control, but it also is good for getting your models onto that marker for planetary peril. And then finally, Brandon's Bravado. It's all the schemy, interacting one. Enemy models basically have a form of insignificant till the next start phase and can't interact. Friendly models immediately can choose to interact. So this one's just about scoring. And then you have a crow trigger on this where you can increase the TN of the duels from 12 to 14. I think this is a great ability. It's really flexible. It's strong.
The crow trigger, just so everybody understands, because I just want to clarify, that crow trigger is applicable to any of the triggers, either Sam's Strength, Doug's Domination, or Brandon's Bravado, or that crow trigger in your mind is stapled to Brandon's Bravado.
No, sorry. Those are all different versions of the ability. That crow trigger is for whatever version of the ability, whatever of the 3 chose, the duel for your opponents to resist it becomes 14 instead of 12.
Okay, yeah, and that trigger is attached to Danger Overload, not whatever.
Yes. Yeah, those abilities, the way the formatting here is a little unusual. It's something Malifaux I don't believe has done so far, but those things, Sam's Strength, Doug's Domination, Brandon's Bravado, those aren't triggers. Those are just ways of resolving the ability. Yep. It's basically choose one of the following, and it was just so complicated I did a little header for each one.
Yep, makes sense. Now I think this is the last part. The last model we're about to talk about is my favorite one from your design. I really, really love the design of this model.
The Spaceman. Yeah, so the Spaceman's a fun little guy. He's he's a totem, so he has totem stats. He's got good defense because he's got that space suit protecting him, and it gives him armor too. He is significant. That is important. This guy, he's supposed to be kind of flying around in the saucer or with a jetpack at least. I like the idea that maybe he's like calling the saucer and it kind of picks him up in a tractor beam and puts him where he needs to go. So he's got his armor. He has flight. The mascot rule just says that you can basically, if you place a marker near him, he teleports to the marker, and if you move him, the marker teleports to him. So he's the one carrying around these meteors. Again, I get the idea that in my head, he's got like a little remote control, and he's controlling the flying saucer, and it's like picking these things up in its tractor beam and dropping them in new places. And he has gunfighter just because his only attack is a ranged attack. So his ray gun is pretty short range. It's only stat 5. But it's got ray gun ability. So spread it out is basically I'm envisioning like lightning arcing around and making somebody staggered, and then convulsions makes the target. Yeah, they kind of like jerk around. Like Yep. Yeah. And then he's got saucer swoop, which is his bonus action, which is basically the saucer just comes down and drops off a little bit of a comet. So he gets to, it's basically a leap. It's like a 6-inch place, but you get to drop a danger planet marker in base contact with him first. And remember, because of the mascot rule, after you move him, you can have that marker kind of come with him. So you don't have to, you can just leave it where he was, but you have a lot of flexibility here. And then there's 2 triggers. One is that looked important, which basically means in my head, a piece falls off the flying saucer, and it gets a little burst of speed. So he doesn't get a marker. You might not always need a marker, but instead it's a 9-inch place, which is really, really far. And radioactive exhaust.
With a flying significant model.
Yep, very, very far. And then radioactive exhaust, which is just a little bit of pink damage from wherever the marker ends up. And because the marker could either drop next to him where he starts, or it could be placed next to him where he ends, you don't get 2 pulses. You get wherever the marker ends up, it pulses out the damage.
Right.
But you got a lot of freedom. So this guy's just fun. He's there for moving your markers around. I do not anticipate opponents letting the spaceman live for very long. Like, this model's not hard to kill, and he can be pretty disruptive if they leave him alive, but he's not super easy to kill. He's def 6 and he's got armor. So if you can keep him safe, he's just going to be super frustrating for your opponent to deal with. Just swooping around, dropping markers.
I'm really excited to play with this little guy. And so just so folks know how they can get their hands on these models and these rules and stuff, everything about this project is free. We're not charging for any of this. This isn't paid. This is just something we wanted to do for the Malifaux community. Everything here is free for anybody that wants it. We're going to have the STL files hosted on our Discord, as well as linked in the body of this video. So our account on Thingiverse will also have those files. You can just go and download them for free, and we'll have the PDF rules in printable format on our Discord downloadable in our Malifaux section. And I'll also see if I can host them through Thingiverse or another image hosting site for folks. So again, this is kind of like our love letter to Malifaux. For Sam, this is, I think, the first thing you've ever really designed, right, Sam?
For Malifaux, yeah.
Full soup to nuts design process. This is like the first thing you've ever done, and I think you did a great job. I'm really excited to play with these models. I have a handful of friends that are excited to play with these, and I have 2 people that actually have never played Malifaux before, and they're looking to have Blob Ross be their first master. Kayla wants to try out Blob Ross and learn Malifaux with Blob Ross, which I think is hilarious. So
that's fun, yeah. So all I'd ask from people is, if you run into fun Blob Ross combos that we haven't thought of, or fun moments, please let us know. I really want to see how he interacts with all these different keywords. Like, I'm sure there are combos I haven't even thought of that would be super fun and cool. So just let us know what kind of fun stuff you're doing with him, then the cool ways that he works with your existing crews, and maybe some great moments from games you've had involving him. Please share those in our Discord channel or in the comments section. We'd love to hear them.
Yep, and as a last section, you guys will see Brandon Lane from Danger Planet, one of the 3 owners of Danger Planet, one of the other heads of the Hydra. In fact, the 3rd head of the Hydra that is not on the call right now. He's going to be at GenCon, and he's going to be giving away high quality resin prints of Spaceman and Blob Ross. So if you see him in the Malifaux area wearing a Danger Planet shirt, come up to him, say hi, and he'll have physical Spacemen and Blob Ross models to actually give you guys. If that's not your speed, or you're not going to be at GenCon, obviously everything you hear is going to be digitally accessible. And Sam doesn't even know this. I saved it for the very end of the video with him live, but we have a enforcer that we may be adding at some point in the next couple of months that would add on to this Danger Planet keyword. And it may or may not be a vessel that Blob and Spaceman travel in. So
very cool.
Spicy. Sam, I guess thank you so much for all the help. As always, excellent job designing these, my man. I'm really, really excited to play with them. Do you have any closing thoughts on the project as a whole, things that you're excited about with the project, any kind of last thoughts now that we're kind of near the end of this thing?
Yeah, just, designing Malifaux Masters is a lot of fun. The game has a lot of design space, but it's very important to figure out what design space has not been explored for good reason and to stay away from it. But I think it's also a fun exercise, especially with Madness and Malifaux having been in the wild for a while, you can kind of see what things people really like in Masters and what things people really would like to see less of, and kind of design in that direction. And that was what I was trying to do. So I hope these guys are just a lot of fun for you people out there.
Yeah, and like Sam said, guys, let us know what the feedback, good feedback, bad feedback. We're doing this more as a love letter to the game that we love spending time with. Everything here is free. It's all just given away. Like I said, we're just trying to make the community a fun and better place for us to enjoy the game that we love the most. So we'd love to hear your guys' feedback, positive or negative. Let us know in our Discord. Let us know in the video comments. And we're going to keep rolling, doing our thing. And hopefully you guys are going to keep hanging out with Danger Planet. So I sang, Sam, I think the one thing you need to do is just say goodbye to the internet, buddy.
Thanks for coming by the Danger Planet, everyone. See you next time.
See you next time, guys.